Hello, everyone. My name is Swarnima Bhattacharya, and I'm currently the co-founder of Gytree, which is India's largest women's health platform. And I welcome you to another edition of Reframe, the Mental Health Summit by SheThePeople. And today, we've been having a lot of conversations around different aspects of mental health, and I'm very, very pleased to bring before all of you a person I deeply admire and whose approach to mental health is also something that I have learned a lot from. So welcome, Shilpa. Shilpa Singh is, she's a counselor, she's a, career coach, she's a founder of Metamorphosis Consulting. And, what I have admired in Shilpa's journey is where she looks at the idea of workplace not only as a commonplace, but something, that people as an individual inhabit. And I've also, spoken with a lot of people whom she has helped through her journey. So when we are talking about how to make it a reality, to make workplaces aware of mental health, and how to make workplaces accountable for their employees' mental health, I couldn't think of a better person than Shilpa, with 25 years of experience in human resources and consulting. And she's not only sort of helping individuals and organizations, but also kind of bridging the gap between where they are today and what lies in their future. And Shilpa has also worked across several sectors, whether it's education, corporate, and so many other contexts. So welcome once again, Shilpa, and thank you, Shilpa, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Swarnima. Pleasure to be here. Always good to interact with you.
Thank you. So, Shilpa, we'll just start with the most fundamental question. And, we also know that, this is a conversation that obviously has its roots in, what recently happened, the tragedy that happened at Ernst & Young, where a young person, died by suicide. But, what happens is that while there's a lot of conversation around this one company and one person, who succumbed to, so many factors that we will unfortunately never know, we want to zoom out a little bit and just look at the idea of workplace and the individual in it and their health overall, not just in terms of therapy and everything. Now, we have a lot of data that shows that, 60% of the Indian workforce reports a very high level of burnout, which is 20% more than the global average. What is happening fundamentally? What are we doing to come to this?
Okay, because that's a really great question, and it's also very sort of layered situation. As a country and as a society, we have never really valued mental health as much, right? And we also have a very strong, or have had, and I'm so glad to see the new generation deals with things slightly differently, which is very happy for me in terms of being able to observe as an HR person. But we also have a very strong sort of guru shishya parampara that comes from our education, right? And which is also culturally, we are taught you do not speak back to your elders, you do not question things, you do not doubt anything that's being told to you to do. So as a result, when we look at how we look at the burnout process, it's not happening only in the workplace. The workplace ends up seeing the outcome of the burnout that's been taking place throughout the journey of an individual, from whether they've been forced to study something at the school level, which they didn't want to do because parents didn't agree, etc. What will people say? What will society say? You must become an engineer, a doctor, or take a certain mark. Then that becomes symptomatic of choosing a job that you're not happy with. Then you're going to job every day and not being happy doing that. Yeah. And furthermore, that gets compounded further by the fact that as a group of people, we value the perception of hard work more than smart work. So if you're sitting for long numbers of hours, you're supposedly working much harder, which in my personal opinion is the most inefficient way. You obviously 9 hours is more than enough for you to be able to do your work. If it goes more than that, you're doing something wrong, right? Yes. But also the simple fact that we value things that are optically like that. Oh, this person sits so late. Oh, this person does so much. Oh, they did work on the weekend. And we get sort of rewarded for those things, right? In the sense of It may not be a direct reward, oh, you're getting an increment or a bonus, but it could be a reward of the boss loves me. And we have this great desire to be liked by our seniors and things like that. So it ends up becoming this snowball, and the outcome comes out in the workplace.
Yeah.
Furthermore, because we value this whole process of sit late at your desk, work whenever we tell you to, and we are compounded that with you can't question, you can't say no, you can't draw boundaries. If you are actually prioritizing your life and your family before that, you are judged, you're ridiculed. It's a really toxic mix that's ended up creating it. And we've not valued mental health. We've not even valued physical health. Oh, so-and-so was sick, but they worked through their fever.
Yeah.
They were unwell, but they did this. You know, they had surgery, but they came back after 3 days. This is not a badge of honor. If your employee, for all people who work, I have always said, one, you are not irreplaceable. You will get replaced by a company. Two, if you're dead, they'll find somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? It's a harsh truth, but it's true. They will, right? They will move forward. But to your family, to your friends, you're it. You're the only person. So you have to really, and I've been guilty of where I've powered through a fever. I have gone to work and traveled when I've been sick, because we've been taught that that's what's viewed as good employee, good person, right? And so then it snowballs into 60% burnout. And it's a very layered process. It's cultural, it's what we're taught, it's everything.
Yeah. Hustle culture is often seen as the answer. When do we know that how do we know that our ambition and our drive as a company or as an individual has become something toxic, which is actually harming us? And is that a line? How do we train ourselves to also draw that line, right? And you're exactly right that when we are talking about mental health, somebody wrote this on LinkedIn a few days ago, that when employers are thinking about mental health and well-being, we need to go back to the basics. It's not necessary to, like have, highfalutin like policies. Sometimes, when a person is just not being very productive, give them some time off or something like that. And I think that is essentially what I want to, want you to touch upon. Shilpa, see, arguably, companies these days are spending a vast amount of money and resources on well-being and workplace policies. There are insurances, there are value-added services. So good amount of spending is happening. But yet, even so, when we're looking around, we see that the people's healthcare and stress levels have just, worsened. So what are we doing wrong? What are the employers? What is broken about, this employee well-being approach these days?
What is broken, in my opinion, and this is purely my opinion, is we do not expect, as being leaders and of our leadership, compassion and empathy, right? As a leader, and when I go into office in corporate, I am not expected to be human anymore. I am expected to leave my emotions, my feelings, my compassion at the door. And we don't value those skills, those abilities, that side of our leadership either. And if you're in a scenario where you are not valuing compassion and empathy, then being assertive and cutthroat and getting it done no matter what, etc., becomes the key skills you're going to reward, right? But when somebody shows empathy, shows compassion, the feedback they'll get in their performance appraisal is you're too soft on your team. You need to get tougher with your people. You can't sit there and be, you can't sit and listen to everybody. This is not right. You got to take tough decisions. And as leaders, you can take tough decisions while you're being empathetic as well. You can approach people with compassion and empathy. Our system is broken because we do not value empathy as a critical skill for a leader to have. And it comes from the top down. If your leader is empathetic, if the top management in any organization is empathetic, and if they think and they value their people as human beings and not as a number that brings another number, you're going to see a change. When the day, and you've got management gurus all over the world talking about empathy is important, compassion is important, and leaders go, yeah. They'll attend the training program and they'll go, yeah, perfect, yeah. But at the end of the day, what was the quarter end result? What was the month end result? Did you achieve your numbers or not? And the compassion and empathy is left into a training room where we exercise our thoughts and we do self-awareness and all of that, and it becomes lip service. And that's where we're broken. The minute we start as consumers punishing organizations that are not empathetic to their employees, until it hits the bottom line, no organization is going to realize. If you're not able to hire the right talent because your organization does not display empathy as one of its values or compassion as one of its pillars, and you don't get the right talent, you're not going to change. And as people going into the world working, choosing to be able to work with organizations where you go in and you say, yeah, I'll work here, but I'm getting a lot of money, no, so it doesn't matter. We're also equally party to it. I mean, I'm not saying it's our fault, but it becomes synergistic that way. But the element comes in, we don't value empathy, we don't value compassion. That's where you can make as many policies for employee engagement. You can say, oh, we're going to give period leave. Oh, we're going to give X. We're going to give paternity. But there's paternity leave. It's 5 days. Take it 1 day at a time. I mean, boss, you've got to think, no, what are you doing? How? Because it's written on paper. But in translation, what's really happening on the ground is what we need to really go back to and think about.
Absolutely.
And it's doable. It is doable.
I want to ask you something. So you've been practicing, for more like 25 years, right? And workplaces have evolved so much. What have you seen? I mean, I of course remember that when my dad was when I was, small and my dad was working, things were stressful even then. But it is a slightly different kind of a stress today. I don't know how to put my finger on it or what it is. Things were pretty stressful, like, I mean, my dad was always worried, things were not easy at all. He had a transferable job. At that point of time, I think there was no social media, and it was even more difficult to, raise your voice against authority figures. So in your experience, what has evolved specifically in terms of how workplaces are prioritizing employees or not, and how are employees holding their companies accountable, if at all?
See, employees can try to hold employers accountable by being able to, speak to their managers, or being able to speak in smaller circles. What you mentioned about the stress being there, but the stress is different now, is also the fact that because that very point that you said, that there was no social media where you could raise your voice or say something, we were also not hustling for number as high as we are now, right? We were also not in environments that were as competitive. If you were looking at, say, pharma companies, they were a limited number. If you were looking at the whole startup culture wasn't there, right? We weren't looking at, oh, I can, if I hustle at 25, be a millionaire, right? Because you're seeing the result in front of you with a Snapchat or an Instagram, and these young people who are creating. So the tech has helped us, because the tech has grown organization and allowed for innovation. But the tech has also allowed all of us across the world to view people from all over the world and say, wow, you've got a Jaguar. I also want a Jaguar. Oh, what do I need to do to get a Jaguar? Oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to be able to present myself as that. So there is that element of which we've added pressure to ourselves as well, where we say, oh, the hustle is real. I need to be able to do spinning 5, plates and be able to do that. And multitasking has to happen. When we multitask, all we do is mess up 5 things at the same time. Our brains are not supposed to multitask. Our brains are supposed to focus on one thing at one time. But when we prioritize as individuals, the fact that things become more important than experiences, right? Or that we say that, and please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we should all work for love and fresh air. We all need money. Everybody needs money to survive, right?
Of course,
we all need money, and we should all have money to be able to buy what we like and eat where we want and go for a holiday and do all of that. But there is also a point where you need to be able to be very clear on it, that someone is always going to be ahead of you. Right? So if you're doing a comparative process, then there's going to be 50,000 people who are going to be ahead of you, and you're always going to be miserable. Either you turn around and say, okay, these are the skill sets I want to work on. I'm going to compete with myself and be better every day, right? That's what I'm going to work on. And as organizations, how do we hold organizations responsible? Is by being able to look very closely at organizations and say, what do you value? As employers, what we ask in an interview is, do you have anything to ask of us? Right? When we do an interview, usually an employer will say, is there any questions you have for me? At that time, ask, what do you value? What is important to you as an organization? What
Yeah.
is it important for you to see growth in your organization? What
Yeah.
happens if an employee comes to you with a problem which is mental health related? How does your company respond? Put
Yeah.
them on the spot and ask. And when people say, oh, it's easy for you to sit there and tell us to be able to ask these questions, there is enough work in the market. You cannot put yourself in a scenario where you are miserable every single day. I am not saying we will not make difficult choices at work and every single day of your work will be rainbows and roses. There'll be days where you'll do drudgery work where you'll be like, ah, this is horrible, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But overall, you shouldn't feel like I have to go to office again. You should feel like you want to go. And employers can be held accountable by asking them that question. What do you do if somebody has a mental health issue? Are you open to people who are neurodivergent? Do you
Yeah.
hire people who have ADHD, ADD? Do you
Yeah.
hire people who have dyslexia? Do you hire people who have learning disabilities? Do you hire people who are trans? Do you hire people who are on the LGBTQI space? Are you hire people on the spectrum? When we ask organizations before we say, yes, we want to go work
Yeah.
with them,
Yeah.
they will have to hold themselves accountable. You
Yeah.
would do it in a personal relationship. Would you
Yes.
get into a
Exactly.
relationship with someone whose values don't match with yours?
Exactly. That's
Then
a
why don't we give that
yeah.
same importance to a company?
What we do is that, at Gytree, we offer women's health benefits to a lot of corporates because we believe that women they have differentiated health needs. And the current workplace
Absolutely.
policies are not, working in those. And we've got a large number of, marquee clients. And the thing that we have learned is that a lot of people tell us, oh, but, this is beyond our affordability, right? Or we are too small or too early when they are not. We have a lot of small companies also on our roster. So it always becomes about the economics of it. But does it have to become this complicated? Does it have to be something that you're spending so much on for the well-being of your this thing? What is the right way to approach this problem?
Swarnima, I have always found it very fascinating, and I always say this. When you have organizations that are, say, in the startup mode or who are smaller in size, so to speak, I mean, we don't talk about a behemoth of 500 crores or 1,000 crores or 3,000 crores. Let's not even go there, right? You have an organization where you say, I'm going to set up a company, or there's 2, 3 of us. The amazing thing is, in the hands of every founder, every co-founder, every start of an organization,
Yeah.
is the control of trying to create what is the culture I want in my company. What do I want my company to stand for? What is it that my company will believe in? Who will my company be as a person? And they choose time and time again to build companies
Yeah.
that don't have those values, right?
Yeah.
And it boggles my mind. You have a choice to
Yeah.
create the culture that you want,
Mm.
right? In an organization that turns around and says, today we are 10 people or 15 people, and this is expensive.
Yeah.
And we don't need a system, a process, or something else, whether it is HR systems, processes, policies, insurance, whatever it is. You don't dig a well when you're thirsty. You invest when you're small, so that when you are 5,000, the system is in place,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
people don't realize that either. You create policy and system from day one.
Mm.
Because today you're 30, it's manageable. Tomorrow you'll be 500. Then you'll teach people what to do. Then you'll say, boss, I want you to behave differently. I need you to be empathetic. I need you to. But from day one, if you say, look, we are 20 people, we are 30 people, we are 40 people, whatever size, we are 100 people. Who do we want to be as people? We want to be people who value openness. We want to be people who value people above other things. To the point where sometimes hard decisions have to be taken where you say, I'm not going to work with a particular client because they treat my people badly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because your person, either you turn around and talk to that employee and say, I know the client is treating you really badly, but boss, we need this money. I'm behind you. I'm with you. I will stand with you in every meeting. Let's bitter pill our way through this. At
Yes.
least the employee knows you get
Yeah.
it.
They feel validated at least, Yeah.
that you
Absolutely.
understand, you're with me. It can be that situation also, because as a startup scenario or a smaller organization, you may not always have it. Suddenly you get this big whale of a client,
Yeah.
but they're miserable to everybody they're dealing with.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can actually, sometimes it just helps to be able to say, look, I get it, I see you. What do we want as
Mm.
human beings? We want to be seen and recognized, right?
Mm. Absolutely.
We want to be told you matter. When you
Yeah.
come into this office every single day, the work that you
Yeah.
do makes a difference to my organization growing. Whether you
Yeah.
make chai, whether you are the head of sales, whether you are the person who comes and cleans the office every evening, whether you are the person who helps somebody park their car downstairs,
Mm.
whether you are the person who is marking attendance or who's whatever. If you
Yeah.
were not doing your piece, there would be a problem,
Mm.
because we forget that, right? It
Absolutely.
does not need to be fancy policies. It does not need to be expensive policies. It can
Yeah.
just be one-on-one conversations with your team in a scheduled manner. Touch base with your people once in 2 weeks. Maybe once in 2 weeks is a lot. We're in a very
Yeah.
high pressure environment. Cool. Touch base with them once a month. To
Mm.
have a standing meeting with your team every other week, where you don't all sit down and say, oh, we have to make agenda and we have to sit down. Don't stand up with your team 10 minutes, say, how's everybody doing? What's happening? Where do you need help?
Yeah.
Half the problem will get solved. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because at
No.
least I know my boss is going to ask me and I can go and answer. Now I can say, boss, I'm stuck, man. Can you help me? Then you
Mm.
divert energy towards that.
Yeah, yeah. But how do we center our well-being? How do we also remember that, there can be no nation building if we're a nation of stressed, unhealthy people adding to the nation's burden of disease, so which also costs the nation that we're trying
Yeah.
to build. So
It,
how do
it
we
makes
center our
absolutely bad money sense if you've got
yeah,
unproductive people.
yeah, absolutely.
See, the thing is, look, when we talk about even being able to connect with your team or being able to talk, being able to do any of the smaller levels of engagement and being able to do that, first and foremost, um, how do we how do we fix this?
Hmm.
Unfortunately, what happens with us as a nation is we have scenarios that take place that create great outrage and then we forget. Right? We've seen it many times when crimes against women have happened, or now that we've had these two scenarios that have taken place, both one in a financial services company, one in a consulting company, where you've had people who been pressured into the workspace. There are people who started talking. It's almost sort of like a resurgence of a Me Too, but now more about a Me Too in terms of the stress and what the cultures look like.
Yeah.
I think what's very important is um, maybe I don't know if the larger organizations want to be able to build the bandwidth in. But what's important for smaller and mid-level organizations is to say, we are amongst some of the biggest contributors to this nation's
Hmm.
wealth building story. It's the MSMEs, it's the startups. We are the
Yeah.
ones creating that scenario.
Yeah.
What do we want to value? And remembering the fact that when you value people and you're valuing that, you're building trust. You're building people who will stay with you for the long haul. When you have people who stay with you for the long haul, they are more productive. If somebody cares about you as a leader and the organization's values, they will stick with you. They will provide you with new ideas. They will be willing to come to work every day. They are willing to weather the storms with you. When you run out of funds, they will stick with you. They will say, we
Yeah.
won't take
Yeah.
salary for 3 months, but we'll be with you. It is doable. I
Yeah.
have lived it. It is doable,
Hmm.
right? And what we need to be able to remember also is keep in mind very clearly the fact that where do we go from here is in organizations creating smaller circles of communication to say, what do we need to fix? Right? How do we need to address these issues? Is it going to be a sweeping one fell swoop sort of change across all companies? Absolutely not. It's not. No company is going to wake up one morning and say, ta-da, we're going to change our entire culture. It doesn't work. But at least we start the conversations. The same way we started conversations in our homes. The same way we started conversations with our parents, where we've spoken to them and said, look, I need to talk to a counselor. And it was one small step, and then somebody said, okay, go ahead, and then somebody else talked about it and the stigma became lesser and lesser. It's that same process. It's people who are the younger people. It is people like me, people like you, who will push for, do you want to talk about this? Can we talk about this? Can we create a little group? Like you can have a book club, right? Why can't you have a mental health conversation group in your organization? Why can't the organization say, all right, let's talk about a buddy system where you check in with each other. And if you check in with each other, we're going to hold that as one of your KRAs, and we're going to say, you're going to get recognized for being somebody who is there for someone else. We don't know. We value something like how much numbers did you achieve this month? And that's what your KRA is. We don't value things like you helped a team member. You listened to a team member. A team member came and spoke to you and needed your help, and you were there for them. When you start valuing those things, it's going to make a difference. But I think what can happen is, because obviously there's no other way, it's smaller conversations the bubble will have to grow into a larger one. So at different levels, it'll have to happen. And also the whole of, we've handled stress, people are not, you have to be strong to be able to work, you have to be alive to be able to work. This whole statements that have been made by many people.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Many people who've turned around. And I disagree with the fact that it is a work-life balance. It is a life balance.
It is a life balance.
It is a life balance.
This is
work is a part of my life. It's not something that I do separately. And if my employer cannot understand that I bring my best, no employee joins any company to be disengaged. No, they come in to be engaged. And then you disengage them. And then you say, why don't we have productivity? Look within. If you are turning around and telling anybody in your team, I need you to be more productive. I need you to be more entrepreneurial in your thought. I need you to be able to be more engaged. Something you're doing somewhere, which is not doing it. Also, being able to create empathetic policies is important. But the reason a lot of people stop by doing that is because they say, oh, people will take advantage of it. In every scenario, there is going to be one or two people who will take advantage of a good thing. That doesn't mean you mess it up for everybody else. Right? Because most of us are responsible enough to say, you've given me a good thing, I'll take care of this. There's going to be one or two people who will be like, aha, I'm going to take advantage of this. Those people you'll weed out of your company anyway, no? Then they're not the right fit for you then, right? So then you need to think that. But we will not make an empathetic policy.
Yeah.
Because three people will take advantage. I don't understand that logic.
Absolutely.
We trust people to behave well, they will behave well. You assume people will behave badly, they will live up to your expectations.
It's true. No, I think, thank you so much. I think, Shilpa, as usual, this was, I think, for me, the takeaways are very clear, very practical, and you're exactly right that the only way forward from here is to keep pushing. Like for every, like big things do not happen overnight. Sometimes we look back and think that, oh my God, such a big transformation has happened, but we don't remember the small pushes that, that we were doing. And you're exactly right that every employee and employer has more autonomy than they often give themselves credit for. And we choose every day who we want to be. And for an individual, it is important to reframe, this conversation as not a work-life balance, but a life balance, because there is so much more. Thank you so much, Shilpa. It was a delight speaking with you. Very practical, very straight shooting, very funny. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Swarnima. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.